They don't even have a staple puller.
Staple puller?
April might in her office.
Yeah. Not part of my equipment. Fingernail?
Nope, I got an arrowhead for you.
Where, Molly?
Won't break it, will I?
Nope.
Oh, it's nice.
You cut your finger.
Just the basic election software. Just the-
Voila.
Not the annual fees, just the,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, invite here.
I think that's such a sort of time.
You do it
I'm
about.
trying
to make the point that
You need to
Farmers
take your jacket
are
off faster.
arriving at the time of the
Bidding
meeting
up
is
these
on
old
time.
1980s
This is for my benefit, but you're helping with the
equipment.
argument.
Because it
You're helping me with my
refurbished.
argument.
It's like,
When I was chair, we had a commissioner, and he called me 15 minutes before the meeting, and he said, "I'm running late, can you hold the meeting?" And I said, "No," and amazingly, he made it here on time.
150,000. And they got all, and you can't fix them yourself. You have to wait in the field while they send technicians, fly them in from
I
somewhere.
was talking to my
I mean,
dad
so
about this, and I think it's genetic. that
Farmers are just like
our
clamoring
desire is
for
to
this
arrive
older
precisely.
equipment.
I've gone through this so many times, it's wrinkled.
You're gonna need a new copy.
Never
Well, and then it didn't copyright, so it's got all these dark spots.
That's what it is. I'm like, I can
Find the print pretty
two more
small.
things
I got
in the
this
next
in the mail,
15
so.
minutes. A lot of times that.
There he is.
Morning, Dave.
Part of
Yes, you too.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
the economic system is so out of kilter. That's part of it.
Hey, Mike.
Happy New Year.
And to you too. Morning.
That was me honking at you.
This is just. Good morning. I will call the Cook County Board of Commissioners organizational meeting to order on this January 7th of 2020. Please rise for the pledge.
That was very Barbara Walters-like.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any adjustments to the agenda? I do have one. Tim got some information last night that he would like us to look at, so we'll put it at the time of our, under organizational employee commissioner concerns.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, being part of our beginning of our organizational meeting, we're going to have elections. First, we'll have the board election, chairman election, and then we'll have the vice chair election. There's a couple ways we can do it, and I'm just throwing it out here. If you want any discussion on it, we can do it by ballot, or we can do it by voice. So, anybody have any thoughts on?
I like the ballot method. We just pass them down to Brady and he can tally them. We do it during general policy committee. It's worked really well over the years.
Did anyone else be in favor of that, or is voice? It's been the way we've always done it, but, you know, we can look at other ways too.
I'm open to the ballot idea, but I hadn't really thought of that. I just assumed it'd be doing the voice.
I read it in Molly's letter to us when it had the options of what we could do. We could just say who is unable or unwilling, so their name wouldn't be written down.
Oh, Molly?
We haven't done this before. It is an option, and so I just want to make it clear that first, commissioners will need to identify themselves who is voting in a certain way on that ballot. And second, that all of those ballot slips, the actual vote itself is public. So the documents themselves are public. How you voted is public. It's just a way to maybe do it silently or.
So you'd write
with a-
your name on it and who you vote for so that it could be documented. Perfect.
What advantage do you, just a more,
I feel like it's a popularity contest, and it's a little pressure on who you're sitting next to sometimes.
what disadvantage would the ballot have? Okay.
I don't know if it would have a disadvantage, other than it'll take a little more time to work it through, both with the chair and the vice chair, then, it would be for both positions.
Well, I'm pretty open on it, but it seems good sometimes to stick to tradition, the way we've done it, but I'm,
And then I always worry if you vote against someone that they hold those feelings. I mean, I know you can look at it later and see who voted for what, but just, for me, it feels like a nicer way to do things. Less pressure.
Any thoughts, Commissioner?
Just like when you vote for the president. It's your
declare
own
your
business.
Commissioner DeShawn?
Either way, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to state that I am fine where I'm at.
Okay. And I will state I am also.
He also means his chair. He will not give up this spot. I've tried.
just a point of order
Yes.
For the county attorney. Is this a decision the chair can make, or is it a decision that would require board motion and approval to change something from past practice?
Well, I think you would want, I mean, this is a pretty important decision that I think requires an action of the board. So any action of the board requires that majority vote. It's a change in procedure for you. I think keeping the way you've been doing things, the viva voce, or however you say that in Latin, the oral vote, would not require an action. But if you're going to change it, I think you should have the majority vote of the board.
So I'll make a
Especially for an
motion.
election of this,
Right.
I'll make a motion to vote by ballot for chair and vice chair.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
I'll support that.
Any further discussion on that?
Yeah, not really. I guess I already said, like, I don't see the disadvantage. I recognize the traditional way of doing it. And I can see a little bit of a distance to keep it less personal, maybe, I guess, voting by ballot. I don't know if that's helpful, or...
We've had years where it's been very personal.
Sure.
It
Yeah, I
might not be
suppose.
this year, but
Okay. All in favor of using a ballot? Aye.
Aye.
I,
So then we need ballots.
Good.
Can you vote?
And
Great.
sticky notes?
Unforeseen
this
consequences.
is what we do in general committee. We have about 87 of these bad boys.
So we're voting for chair.
Might be voting twice.
Well,
Depends on
I only
how
need one.
people are nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah, people still need to nominate.
So do we see
We've gotta
who's not
somebody that's
available?
nominated first.
We know Bobby's not.
and will Brady count these?
Yep.
Do we need nominations?
I nominate Commissioner Mills for chair.
So, yeah, what's the procedure on that?
We do nominations and then write.
Well, the chair should first call for nominations and make sure everybody understands how the nomination process works.
I have a question, if I may ask. Are we going to have a chance to talk about our nominations and just our, okay, that's, thank you. Well,
So just wait a minute.
Yep.
So we have now used the ballot system. I have a name on the ballot, so this is to be turned into Brady
To count.
to count. So why are we talking about nominating somebody when we don't know who they are?
Madam Chair, so I did some research on this after our organizational meeting last year and provided a memo to the board. What you want to do, so the usual practice of our board is to take nominations from the floor. If we are continuing in that practice, the chair would call for nominations. Nominations are now in order for the office of chair. I assume we would go with that first. But your decision. After the initial nomination or nominations, so multiple people can be nominated. No second is required for any nomination. You would ask, are there any further nominations? And if there are not, then you would announce that nominations are closed and voting would begin. So whoever has been nominated is somebody that the commissioners can vote for and put on their ballot. What questions does that leave you with?
That's the same thing we did at general. So general, someone would be nominated, and then they would do like what Dave suggested, do a discussion, and then the ballots would be handed in. It's just like a presidential election. People get nominated, and then they spend all year spending on advertising and marketing and trying to sway the vote.
The important thing being, though, that you don't move to election until nominations are closed, so that there is an opportunity for multiple nominations to be made.
Okay. So I'm going to then call for nominations from the floor.
I nominate Commissioner Mills.
For which office?
Chair.
Okay.
I nominate Myron for chair.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Are there any further nominations? For board chair, then, the nominations are closed. The two names that I have for board chair are David and Myron. And so we will vote for them in the order of given. So all in favor for David?
Ginny, we hand the ballot in.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd like to discuss a little bit,
Yeah.
if we may, before.
Okay.
I appreciate the nomination. I'm much, it's my second year. First year was great, learned a lot. I'm much more comfortable as vice chair. I've talked a little bit with Myron about concerns I've had, and I feel like he's heard me, and I can support him as chair, I really like the idea of having a little bit of consistency, a lot of consistency, but a little bit of as much stability and consistency as we can, and so I like the process. I didn't like it initially of having vice chair be chair, just kind of da-da-da-da-da, but I think it's a very strong way to do things, just to help with our structure. So that's also a factor in how I feel about that. So.
And it's an option in the future, we discussed it briefly about doing that. So it's another option. Okay.
And I agree with selecting a vice chair to move into the position of chair. I don't like having an election of people into a position and then changing the rules halfway through the year and saying this is the way we go forward. And I kind of feel like that's what's happened, because my decisions last year would have been different if I would have known what the outcome would be.
Any other comments? Okay.
So pass the ballots down.
Reject any ballots that don't have the commissioner's name.
And Molly, would we still have to do the final vote? Like Brady would tell us who the top.
Let me address that question in just a moment. I saw a ballot where the second nominated candidate was voted for. To be clear, the election for the first nominated candidate happens first. So your initial vote should be aye or nay for Commissioner Mills. The second, if that vote fails, then you move to the second nomination.
Okay.
So I think we might need
should
to
start-
redo this one.
I think we redo it.
Oh, that was a
See, and-
practice one.
So in,
That was practice.
so Molly, in general committee, the whole slate was available and you chose the one you wanted.
Yeah, this is what my research showed. I'm not sure what, they probably have bylaws that define how their elections happen.
Novel idea.
That's cool.
We'll get there.
We should get those sometime. But we don't have bylaws that.
So Brady, if you
I'm
want to
just telling
give
you
us
what my
each our
research
note
is.
back, go ahead. And we put yes or no?
And I would ask, we got a revote.
And I would ask, just to be clear,
Well, you don't want to show everybody other people's votes, Brady.
I don't know whose is whose on some of
Oh,
these.
you were supposed to write your name on it.
Yes, you need to write your name, and please write your name at the top. First name is your name at the top, then put your choice underneath.
Aye or nay
Aye or nay
for Commissioner Mills.
for Commissioner Mills?
You want yours? Let's throw these away.
Is that not clear?
It is
I-
very clear now.
Okay.
I
Second
wasn't
step is
clear to me
clear.
before. but-
So, yeah. Are there any questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next bill. Thank you.
Okay, we have 1 aye and 4 nays.
Okay.
I have some more input, Madam Chair, if I can be heard. So the election becomes final when the chair announces the result.
So the results are the noes have it for Commissioner Mills. So the next candidate is on the list, Myron. We're making work for this one. I don't think we've ever done this process before. This is interesting. Gives us a chance to decide in the coming years
It's perfect for 2020.
via voice, or ballot,
I think we should do Viva Voce.
or moving on from, yes.
Madam Chair, the vote on Myron Bershon for chair is 4 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay, so the yeas have it for Commissioner Bershheim to be elected chair.
Well, thanks for your confidence.
I'm going to pass this
Wow.
on to you.
Not that Jeannie's done with it or anything.
Thank you, everybody.
Again, I think it's appropriate to recognize our chair for her last 2 years of service, and so I know it's a lot of work, and I've been grateful to work with you on that. Okay, so going on, we'll follow the same procedure. We'll open it up for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Commissioner Mills for vice chair.
We have one nomination, Commissioner Mills, and do we have any other nominations? Any other nominations? I think you go 3 times, but any other? Okay, then we'll close nominations and take a vote. Name at top, and
I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, and this is also a point of order, potentially, in a contested election, we need a ballot, otherwise, not? Or, isn't that what,
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question.
if there's a contested election,
If there's 2 nominees,
right, then we need to have a method of voting. If there's no other nominee,
but I like writing
I
on
think
sticky
it's
notes.
still, I think you can still determine by bylaws or otherwise that you can vote by ballot, whether
Okay.
contested or not.
yeah.
Just a reminder to finish those bylaws this year.
Right, we're going to do that.
Yes, we are.
Even if it kills us.
okay, so,
We're waiting for one more ballot.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Not madam. The votes are 5 aye and no nays for David
So the
Mills
chair
as
will
vice chair.
announce that our vice chair is Dave Mills.
Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Next week we'll trade places.
Okay, so let's move on to public comment. Anyone have that? I don't see anyone raise their hand or make a gesture, so we'll move on. We'll go to item 5, appointment of county commissioners to various boards, committees, and commissions. I guess I could get feedback on this, but I would suggest that we proceed as follows, that we go through each of our individual lists and comment whether we would like to have some help or exchange or something like that, understanding that maybe the decision can't be made now, but if we can make the decision now, that would be good. We could clean up some of this stuff. Excuse my language on that, but it's a lot of information. I would hope that throughout the year, we'll take a look at our assignments and start thinking about how we're going to proceed in the future. We seem to have sort of, past practice. We make a decision to be involved, and then we don't really evaluate, does that really fit anymore? So I think if today you feel there's some concern about any of the assignments, please bring that up, and we could take action on it or consider it later. For those that require dues, it might be good to take a look at that today more seriously. Hopefully, we could go through that and take care of any changes, and Stacy, help me take notes with that if we do have some exchanges or concerns. And then we certainly could make some changes later on, as mentioned. After that, I'd like to quickly go through each of the lists, starting with boards and commissions, standing committees, and so forth, and maybe try to update some of these things a little bit, because as I went through it the other night, I found out that we definitely could update some of the issues, and if we can do that now, that might help, but if not, then April will help us, I'm sure, with that in the process. So, Commissioner Dutkirk?
I'm confused. First it was our own list, and now you're saying going one by one.
No, in that succession. So we'll go through our own lists, and then we'll go through the committees and standing things to make comments.
So our own list is the individual committees. Usually we do it one way or the other.
Well, I think there's some committees and other things on here that I would like to get the opportunity to get updates on one.
What kind of?
One would be general government. I have some suggestions on that. that I've talked to people about. Would you look to do it differently?
Well, if we go through our list and change that, and then if you have individual questions, it just, I mean, if there's no changes, to go one by one is a very long process, especially if during that process we say, no change, no change, no change, no change, no change. I mean, if there's specific ones, whether they're yours or not.
Okay.
To address them would go a little faster.
Any other thoughts?
Yes, I think probably this would be the better list. This is what individuals do, but it'll come out from here.
Right.
And we can make the changes, somebody maybe will be alternate instead of primary, and then it'll be transferred over to this
Okay.
list. Since
So you want to go one by one instead of just your individual list?
this, the standing committees, and then moving on to the advisory committees, and then moving on to assignments.
So you want to go one by one instead of just your list?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't double-checked to see if everything is in order in that regard, but
It is.
let's assume it is. Okay, all right.
I believe it is.
Does everybody else want to go one by one?
What do you others think? I'm really open.
I only have one change, so for me, I don't really want to go one by one.
Yeah, I thought last year, me being new, that it was a fair amount of shuffling, and this year I wasn't anticipating much, but
Okay.
maybe there is more. I don't,
Yeah.
there's not much from my end.
Well, the only thing I'll put out there is, being vice chair and chair, would there be something that you feel you may not have time for, and I would be willing to work with you on that.
I
So
think
I'm just
that we'll
offering
find
that
out as the year goes.
To some degree.
Yeah.
Okay, Bobby, any thoughts?
I think we can go through the standing committees, and
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So you want to go one by one?
well, I'd like to make a few changes in a few of them.
Okay.
Not for me, but for people from my district.
Okay.
Okay. So, from what I'm understanding, just informally polling,
I think I went-
that we will not go through our individual lists. We will go to the list of committees and assignments. Is that okay with everyone?
like this
Just
one,
give me
I
a
want
tacit.
someone else to-
Okay.
Well, you could just pull that out instead of going.
I'll get there eventually.
Might die
I
by
was
then.
thinking we might miss something, but let's see what happens. Okay,
Okay.
so we'll go to page 10 to start with. And now we just have the change in county commissioner assignments for chair and vice chair. So standing committees. If there's any changes, just please sort of indicate by your hand or movement if you have any suggestions or comments that you'd like to make. And then if we have none, we'll just move on, and that'll assume that it stays as it is. Understood by everyone? Okay. Building committee. Okay, move on. Community Center Board of Trustees. General Government Committee. I have some comments on that one. And I think it's just a matter of adding some people. Listed as the chair, vice chair, and Brady Powers and county administrators. I would suggest that we include the county attorney and our human resources director under that working group. For the last couple of months now, there's been weekly meetings called Leadership Team. And in the past, the General Government Committee has not met for a long time. It was usually held on sort of a needs basis, but I really think following AMC and others that this is a very important part of our operations and somewhat has a impact on other committees and so forth. So I would suggest that this become more of a formal committee and that It would report to like the committee of the whole, that's the process we have, and then going to the board for any changes or discussions that are significant. It also, I think this year we have some big issues dealing with finance, budgeting, and so forth, and maybe this could be a place where we could talk about process and so forth. So it wouldn't be necessarily a different change, it would be a different focus. I think another issue that would be important is to keep some kind of minutes of these meetings, and they'd be more transparent for everyone. So any comments?
I agree with you, and I understood that that was the format of the committee. So I'm sorry that it hasn't been. And then I do have a question. I believe that we voted for you and Ginny, not as chair and vice chair, but just as the two people who were willing to sit on it, because it doesn't say that it's a chair and vice chair position.
Okay, well, good point.
So if you two would be willing to continue on it, that would be great.
Yeah, I guess I would suggest that if we go forward, that it would be the chair and vice chair, unless there's reasons for not doing that, but it seems to make sense.
I'm comfortable with it being who's available, because there's already a lot of committees for chair and vice chair. Just looking forward the next 10 years, putting the burden on the chair and the vice chair.
Any other thoughts? We can leave as is, and deal with it every year.
I'm curious about why you're thinking chair and vice chair on that committee.
Well, part of this would be the agenda. Yeah, I should have mentioned that, or it could be that these meetings, weekly meetings, would be actually discussing about the agenda. And so thank you for bringing that up. That certainly could be another issue that could be dealt with here, and therefore at least the board chair should be involved in that. That's the rationale.
Well, the county administrator would set the agenda.
Well, it's been sort of joint discussions, but yeah, it is a responsibility of publishing it.
And those meetings are on Mondays.
And this says it's on the second
Second
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yes, and this would be the Monday mornings at 8:30.
And I thought the Monday morning 8:30 meeting with the chair, vice chair, and administrator was just a different type of meeting. It wasn't a compensated meeting. Standing committee meeting. That was something that Jeff had put in place with you and Ginny.
So I think, I'm proposing that we consider this as a new way of going forward and getting a reaction.
I could see efficiencies there. I don't know enough to have concerns about the change.
I don't know that it should be a weekly. I have concerns about a per diem meeting being paid every week to two commissioners.
That's a good point.
Sure, yeah.
It was never a per diem for me.
Yeah.
Not the Monday one, but this one is general government
Yeah.
on the second Tuesday should be.
Yeah, well, that's different, yeah. To me, we called it the leadership meeting, was beneficial because if there were any questions, anything that we felt we needed to discuss in the present or in the future, we could then bring that to the board too. Otherwise, it would come to the committee of the whole.
Yeah, I think leave it as the second Tuesday of the month, once a month, and adding in the people that you suggested is a good idea, making it more formal.
Robbie?
I guess I'm not on the general government, even at AMC, so whatever they would suggest, that would make us run smoother here.
Okay, so I think what I'm reading, continue as is, or would you like to change, consider the change?
Well, I would like to add the county attorney and Allison, as you suggested.
Or was our HR director.
HR, sorry.
Yeah, I'm look-
I got PHH and H all together. So I will make a motion to add county attorney and HR to the list of the general government committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any discussion, excuse me?
We just gave Molly a job without asking her.
That's okay.
No discussion? Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, we'll continue as is. Labor negotiations.
It's my favorite thing to do. It's coming up this year.
So it's the board chair and board vice chair. And that has been past practice.
Okay, I have a question about that. If do we have any other representation on our behalf?
The administrator joins
Okay.
in, and now we have a new structure, so I would assume that HR would also be in those discussions, but I don't know if there's any legalities to that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what?
So in the past, for the labor negotiations, it's been chair, vice chair, or alternate, and the administrator. Formerly, our administrator was HR. Is there any issue with including HR in the labor negotiations? Or do we remove administrator?
I think it would be, what do you think? Do you have an opinion here? Because you've been involved in labor negotiations before. I've not been involved in that part. Legally, I'd have to research and see if there are any issues. I can't think of any. This is kind of a quasi-legal question, though. Who is your, are you setting up a situation where both of the individuals who could potentially be a neutral party for an employee to go to are now part of the negotiations and could be seen as a adversarial person? You kind of want to reserve one of those people to be more neutral.
So could we hold this until some research is done, and maybe Rena, you could check with a couple other counties of who the point person is besides chair and vice chair? Sure. Because we do have a new structure, and we will have labor negotiations this year.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, Chairman Bershon, one consideration in this is that you will be hiring a new administrator sometime this year, and if you make that person the administrator as part of this team, that could easily mean a switch of who is involved in the middle of negotiations. You know, I mean, it could, and I don't know how that would play out either, you know, because.
And that's happened in the past also.
I know, but a new administrator might have a different strategy or different goals in negotiations. So I'm just pointing that out, that there could be a change of leadership of the negotiating team in the middle of negotiations, for whatever that's worth.
We could hold negotiations until the administrator is hired.
I think that the Personnel Committee has been talking about starting negotiations earlier this year.
Yes, which would be May, April or May.
Right.
And that would be after we hire the administrator. Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, that's the most optimistic schedule he's given us so far.
And if we don't, then we change it because of circumstances. But at this point, God willing, everything will be in order.
Okay, so point of order, I think a decision going forward is to, should we try to deal with this now, or should we wait a little longer? And
I'd like to wait until we look at how it's done in other places.
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess I would like to check out why the board chair and vice chair have been on this,
Yeah, we can ask.
rather than just appointing someone. I think that'd be another question.
We should have our toughest people.
Yes. I've been on every single one since I've been elected, and I've only been chair twice.
You're one of the toughest, I'd say.
Let's just leave that one to discuss at a later time.
Great.
Any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and I'm sorry that for my confusion, I'm almost certain both administrator and HR should not be on that, and I just don't remember which way it's supposed to.
No, I think one or the other, but
Yep, and I can't, yep.
it depends upon the structure, and I guess we don't have any bylaws or anything like that, so that could be an issue to discuss. I've been in systems where HR director was the head of negotiations.
Yeah, and I think that's why
And-
it wasn't the administrator previously, it was the HR portion of the administrator job.
But there's rationale,
Mhm.
but do you want, Or is it considered an adversarial role, or is it, one that's more facilitatory and the process itself will, sort of handle that? But okay, so discuss further.
Before we had an administrator, we had board secretary who was HR, and she was also on the negotiations. And I think it is because the HR understands the legalities of what we can and cannot do during negotiations, and they have all the information on the contracts. So I think that that's where it came from in the past, was to have that HR role. I mean, it was the title of administrator, but it was more because of the HR role.
Okay. I would like to just go back and clarify something that just came to my attention with the General Government Committee. There's a question, I guess, past practice, does this restrict a meeting to be once a month, if it says just once a month in our?
It restricts it to your compensation of per diem. You would have to bring it to commissioner concerns to ask for additional compensation.
Is that the auditor's opinion as well?
I don't know if that's the only reason, but that makes sense, that it's a board decision as to compensation. So if it's understood that it's once a month and there's multiple meetings, then just either vote to change that, or...
So you're saying that if it says once a month here, then we are voting to say it's only going to be once a month?
No, it can be multiple times.
No, it just needs to be agreed.
Okay, all right, thank you. The other point of clarification going back there, is it assumed then that Jenny Storlie and Myron Bersheim will continue on that, or do we want to make a change?
It's assumed it's you two unless one of you two says you don't want to.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Personnel Committee. Public Health and Human Services.
I'm sorry, I guess on the Personnel Committee, we do have union representation on there too, who is not listed. Do we want to?
That's right.
List them?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. So let's add union representative. One union representative? Or
One
from each?
representative from each union.
Okay.
And it's 4 unions.
3.
3?
Okay. Let's note that
LL's
as a change.
49er and CC.
And then we can approve it at the end. Public Safety Transportation Committee. Budget Advisory Committee. Help me with my memory, but I believe that we had set this up for 2 years. But I think it's at our discretion whether we continue, and the past practice has been that the commissioner of the district would appoint someone to represent them at the advisory committee.
I would like us to remove this committee. I didn't find it as effective as I thought it would be, and also no one ever told me that my representative stepped down.
Other thoughts on that?
This has been started off as chair and vice chair. Is that something to be continued, or should we have now the new chair and vice chair?
First, we need to decide if we're going to even have it as a committee any longer.
Which one are we talking about?
I would like us to go through the budget as a whole. I felt very disconnected.
I think we tried to then understand that reports needed to be made to the board at various times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that works pretty well. Starting, I think, in the midsummer, maybe a little bit too late for some folks. Probably it would be better to get an overall view earlier, like May, and then continue on once a month until we get the department heads to then submit their request.
Any other thoughts?
Did you and Jenny see value in this?
I could speak for myself. Jenny, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. I see great value in it. The communication part was not good, and so we, toward the end, then realized we needed to make more, whether it was a committee of the whole or just at a board meeting, to bring you up to speed with what's going on and have input from you. But I would not be in favor of dropping it.
I'll speak from my experience, and we'll go to you, Dave. I found it valuable. I saw the potential far more greater than maybe we were at. We had some difficulty at the end, and I don't want to get into that, but some personality issues started coming up, and so that was problematic. But I think the potential, especially as we deal with some of the issues regarding Thigh-Blotnick and, and not to provide specific advice on whether we should do this, do that, or cut this or add that, but talk about what is the public's perception of what we're doing, sort of the strategies that are important, seeking input in a broader context, but not making decisions. And I find, at least in my experience, that many times you get good ideas that are generated in these discussions, and then they would need to go back. And I believe where it broke down was the communications, and it didn't come back to committee of the whole or to the board as much as maybe it should have. But there were issues going on. I think it could be just so much better, but I think the potential is very good. We need public input, and advisory committees do provide that. I understand your point, and I just look at it a little differently, but then Dave was going to be next, then you.
Well, I can hold my,
Okay, go ahead.
After your comments, I agree with you. So I've got a crazy suggestion. It be the entire board with the public, because you received great value by being a participant, and I received little to no value. So if we are all involved and we still continue to have that public input.
One, I think my comment is relevant too, off of Heidi's. I certainly saw room for improvement with communication and kind of understand some of the personality things going on, but I guess I'm wondering if it needs to be chair, vice chair, or if Commissioner Dukirk wants to be more involved with that particular committee, maybe.
I would love to do that, but I also see huge value in all of us being a part of the conversation. Just from my experience of how it's been done in the past.
So
We could be open to it all, that it's available for anyone who wants to come, but not a requirement.
That violates open meeting law.
Makes it complicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no
mean,
decisions would be
No.
made at the meeting. It'd be like
Right.
committee of the whole, where it's just input and discussion.
and, I agree that there would be value if we're all there. It's a matter of efficiencies and time, and I can see value if we were all on the building committee. I could see value if we were all on the personnel committee, and so I don't know.
The budget is way bigger. It is like the biggest thing we do. is set
Bigger
the
than
levy.
general?
Yes.
No.
We set the levy.
Well,
And that is some of the input I had from the public, was that we were elected to do this. It is our responsibility.
any other thoughts on it? Bobby, you haven't weighed in on this one.
I did.
I guess the question before us, should we have the whole board meeting with an advisory committee on the budget? Or continue as two representatives?
I'd just assume continue as it is.
We could also do like Ginny suggested, where it's posted and it's public, and if a commissioner can't make it, they can't make it, because I know it's a burden of time.
I didn't feel, I didn't feel too far removed from the budget process myself. I didn't get into the discussions, obviously, that the Budget Committee got into, but if I had concerns or questions about any line item as I went through the budget, I could get those answered still. I do see value in discussing it with the public and you know, kind of getting the ideas out there. And I certainly would see value in all of us being on there, but I don't feel the need to do that, so.
Okay.
Commissioner Dukirk, would you be willing to sit on that committee
Yeah,
then? Okay.
because I'm not going to look for someone to fill District 4. That will need to be advertised.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that we should continue as is, and we definitely need to look at how we structure those meetings and maybe set some kind of goals and objectives that are, so that and it's not just getting together and talking about budget. There's a certain purpose and an agenda for meetings to follow.
And will it
Then the
still
other-
be you and Myron, or I mean, you and Jenny?
Well, that's, excuse me, but I was going to continue. So the issue then is, should we, Commissioner Dukirk would like to be on this, and I would be glad to drop off. I've been on it for 3 years, and I have a real interest in it, but to make a compromise, I'm willing to do that.
So my question would be, Commissioner Dukirk, you said you would fill the vacancy for your District 4?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
a citizen must fill that,
Yes.
but I'm not going to find that citizen.
Oh, okay.
It needs to be advertised.
Okay.
Sorry, that's a cost to the county, but, you know, it was difficult finding someone. We had situations where the person who agreed to do it stepped off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so I guess the change there would be then that I drop off and Commissioner Dukirk would be the other rep.
I'm okay with that.
Okay? Now, you maybe want to be off.
I think so, because I think as the chair, you should be there,
Okay,
so.
all right.
Or Dave as the vice chair.
Mhm.
I mean, Myron kind of said he's done it for 3 years, and he's willing to.
Well, I think,
So I will drop off and somebody else can fill in.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay.
The other option is, if you don't want the board chair on there, someone else would need to volunteer.
You know how that goes, Myron. You just nominated yourself.
No, I'm willing to drop
I know
off.
you're willing, but no one else is going to jump into it since
Well,
you
let them
agreed to do
speak for
it.
themselves.
I think you should remain.
Okay, so we'll make that change. And
Can we go back to public safety?
Sure.
I'm the alternate to you and Bobby. It's not listed.
Okay,
I mean, I have it on my computer, but.
that's a good point. So there is value going through this thing. So we added Commissioner Dukirk for Public Safety and Transportation as an alternate. Okay, Highway Advisory Committee, any changes there? Public Health and Human Services, Local Mental Health Advisory Committee.
Well, I'm not on that. I believe I'm the alternate. My name is listed there.
Okay. So you're alternate.
April and Stacy, Inger's last name is Andrews.
No, it's Andrus.
Andrus.
Oh, yes, sorry. Andrus.
It just says Inger on here, so I thought we should have her last name.
Andress.
Okay, going on to other commissioner assignments, Active Living Steering Committee. Agriculture Inspector, I have a question. I believe that when we discussed Kristen Foster's contract, that we removed that. Is that, so that is a question?
It's, Commissioner, it's Tim.
Tim Nelson.
now.
Thank you. Airport Advisory Commission? AMC Indian Affairs Task Force Voting Member, Bobby. AMC Futures, Heidi. Arrowhead Coalition for Multiple Use. I made an inquiry. We have not met for a long time. We have had maybe about 2 meetings. And I did reach out to some people I know that are active in that and did not get a response whether we should have a representative there. I have been that. So I think we'll just leave that and continue on since we haven't heard either way. And there might be a need for that coming up.
Can we go back to AMC Futures?
Sure.
This is a list for compensation, and I do not receive compensation from the county, so it is fine with me to remove that from the list, so there's no confusion in the future.
That's a good point. Okay, Arrowhead Counties, going on next page. Arrowhead Economic Opportunity Agency. Arrowhead Health Alliance. Arrowhead Library System. Arrowhead Regional Corrections Board. Arrowhead Regional Development Commission.
Can we go back to Arrowhead Regional?
Sure.
Bobby, is this the year that we have 2 commissioners?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Regional Development, going on ARDC, Regional Transportation Advisory Committee. Arrowhead Transit. I have been going to that one, but I've had conflicts. Typically meets the 2nd Wednesday of the month, but then it varies, and sometimes it's every 2 months, 3 months. It's at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I know I already have a conflict. I just can't continue on that one, so if someone would...
Where does it meet?
Usually at Senior Center, which is now called the Hub.
Is it beneficial to the county to have representation?
I think it's very important, yes. It gives you, and it's actually an arm of AOEA. You know, I guess we wouldn't have to have anyone there, but sometimes I think there's some decisions made there that are countywide impact about delivery of service. And I do think that we would want to continue to pay if we pay for anything on it.
I was just asking since we've
Sure.
come to a conflict.
And here again, I think sometimes I just haven't shown up, and I know we've had other, conflicts, but, so I would ask that someone, I know I can't continue on the present schedule, but the schedule could change, but,
It's always on a Wednesday?
well.
Or no, it's so varied?
It varies now. They had change in personnel. The next meeting is a week from Wednesday, on the 15th, I believe. And I know I can't be there. I just can't make it.
My Wednesdays are, I could try, but next week I'm in Duluth. So
Yeah.
put me down and at least there'll be a name.
Okay, and then alternate, continue with,
I can be the alternate, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I haven't covered for you. I haven't been
well,
in the loop there.
I think there've been a transition in personnel, so things have been broken down. And quite frankly, when I haven't been able to make it, we have other things going on.
Okay.
Okay, Art Approval Committee,
Mhm.
Assessor Land Commissioner.
I'd like the group to consider removing commissioners from that and making it a staff committee.
The art approval or the art approval?
I mean, it was Jan and I that started it for our love of art, and it was my brilliant idea that I stole from the hospital. But, this is the employees' space and area.
Dropped it?
Well, I just think taking commissioners off of it and having it be a staff thing. And it's Julie Kinney that has been the staff on it so far, so checking in with her and seeing how she feels moving forward, and then having maybe Rena check in with the staff, how they want to move forward with that, or maybe it just doesn't move forward. if it's too
Yeah,
difficult.
I guess my question, there's no dues or anything involved?
It's us putting art in the hallway, supporting local artists.
Then I think we should just remove it from the list.
Yep.
Yeah, and basically, my involvement has just been kind of a point person, and, but there's also a group of artists who are kind of in the loop on that, and so they kind of have their own rotation-ish or feelers
Yeah.
out there, so,
It's evolved.
yeah.
Okay, so let's remove that one, agreed?
Okay.
Assessor Land Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, I think we need to make sure we update the assessor's name on there, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lisa is still the land commissioner.
Okay, Association of Minnesota Counties, it's a policy committee, and of course, all of us are on there with various...
You can remove me as vice chair.
Excuse me.
Remove me as vice chair. I'm not vice chair this year. I turned down the chair position. Then going on to Board of Adjustment. Board of Equalization, it's Cemetery Association, Children's Justice Initiative, State Supreme Court.
I've never received any communication.
Should we drop it? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I can give you some input. That is a committee, well, an initiative of the state judicial branch, but it's chaired by our district court judge. And the frequency of those meetings has been kind of variable over the years. So I can't explain why there hasn't been a meeting recently. At the point that the court does call another meeting, we'll probably need to know which commissioner to send the notice to, or what we could do is I could bring that issue to the next board meeting and ask for a representative to be appointed at that time. So I think it's your choice whether to keep an appointed representative on there or not.
I say keep it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I
Okay,
just was
sure.
communicating, I hadn't heard peep.
Can we go back to Cemetery Association?
Sure.
So this group hasn't met since I've been elected, but interestingly, I am now on the Maple Hill Cemetery Board, and the membership is very similar, except for Bobby, to that one. Jack Hedstrom has sold his house and left the community. So I will get an update for you and maybe find out if the Cemetery Association has new membership. See if I can figure that
So
out.
put this on hold for a little while?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I do know that Beth and Philip are on the Maple Hill Cemetery, and it's through the Congo Church, and it's an interesting thing.
Yes, I was involved in that years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, put that on hold. Children's Justice, so then Communication Armor Tower, any changes there?
Mr. Chair, just the spelling of armor, it's all capitals and it's A-R-M-E-R.
Oh, it's an acronym, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So make that caps. Going on to Community Health Board. Cook County Community Wildfire Protection Plan Implementation Committee as needed. I've never been at a meeting, but is there a need for it?
Yep.
Okay, good. Cook County Healthcare Planning Committee. Cook County Historical Society, that's been very active. Cook County Invasives Team,
That's no longer.
No, it still meets. CCIT? Yes, CCIT is still an organization that still meets quarterly.
Oh. I guess I've never been
Is
an
there
alternate.
Yeah, you've been there with me at the Forest Service building.
Oh, that one. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cook County Local Energy Project, Cook County Restorative Justice Committee, Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District, Cook County Wetlands Management Plan Committee, Cook County YMCA Advisory Committee,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Dukirk, did you want to swap on that? As far as you?
That'd be good.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
So should we talk about the swap or just put you down for now with that change?
Could you remind me, please, when the meetings are? It's Mondays.
It's usually
Monday evening.
Monday at 4:30, the third Monday of the month.
Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't meet every month, I think, but usually about 10 months, and it's usually 4:30 for general meeting, and then there are committee meetings, usually every other month, which would be finance and program development, which...
They're on the off month, yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I just couldn't, it had been a year that I had been involved.
Okay.
And just as long as it doesn't interfere with the library board and the parks and trails.
Okay.
Yeah.
So noted that David Mills will replace Heidi Dukirk. YMCA Duluth Area Family YMCA Board.
Why are we still attending that since we're no longer involved with, we are only responsible for the facility? I mean, when we started this, we had input with their budgeting and different things, but that is no longer our practice.
Well, from my perspective, that is the governing body for this branch.
Right, but it's the governing body of the YMCA as an organization, which we are not a part of. We are responsible for the facility. I mean, they used to bring us their budgets and do updates and have input with us, and we stopped doing that a couple years ago.
Yeah, I've been on it for 3 years, and I know that Commissioner Sievertson was on it before, and a decision was made to have representation there.
Commissioner Sievertson and Commissioner Hakes were on it, and they were on it by choice and did not receive per diem compensation. They were on it just because they were committed to the YMCA as an organization. It's just my concern because the structure has changed many times over the years, and the fact that we are not part of their budgeting process anymore, and that our main focus is the facility.
I don't think they've ever been that. I'm not aware of any changes. I don't want to discuss that, but I guess it's a matter, and I'm not going to advocate for it or against it. Do you want someone on that board representing the county? And I think that's the decision, and sometimes it's not that pertinent, but sometimes the strategies and goals and missions do have impact here, and do you want someone at the table representing the branch from the county? And I think that's up to the board.
How else would there be any communication if you weren't there?
There wouldn't.
There wouldn't.
Well, there wouldn't be representation. And I think always that, my role has been to bring that back to the advisory committee. It also has a role with the facilities committee when we're going through agreements. So there's some dialogue and communications going on, being the messenger, not a decision maker, but I would assume that if we dropped out, we would have a real break in communications, and somehow or the other that would, that could create problems. But going forward, I would think that it's worthwhile to be at the table, especially for the communications back, rather than have it. If we didn't have a representative, then it would be all staff involved in the process, and the staff are not on this board. It's a governing board. It sets goals, objectives, which would impact your...
How do those impact us?
Well, let's say that there's an emphasis on a new youth development program that will come down. The YMCA is an international organization, and it's a corporate organization. It's a nonprofit, and sometimes goals and objectives are passed down through the this federal level to the state to what you'd call governing units, and so the Duluth is a governing unit for branches, and so Hermantown is part of the branch. And, you know, there's a point saying, okay, shouldn't we be involved? I think there would be some ramifications if we weren't. That's
So
all.
that still didn't tell me how that affects us, because if the decisions are about programming, that doesn't affect the facility.
Well, it's a good point.
That's our responsibility, is the facility, not the programming or what they offer or what they contribute to the community. We've stepped away from that. We are responsible for making sure that that facility is the best it can possibly be.
Any other thoughts? And I think I would like to go to our county attorney for your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm only speaking to point out that I'm very familiar with the contracts, and through that, I understand the nature of the relationship, why the county commissioners, at the time that this relationship began with the YMCA, at least as reflected in the recitals of those agreements, why they decided to engage in this relationship with the YMCA as a corporation. This is YMCA Duluth, right? And one of the benefits, or the main benefit that the county used as a justification for this relationship was that the YMCA could take over essentially a recreational program that would otherwise be run by the county. So the county kind of gave up responsibility, but also authority to the YMCA to make decisions related to the county's recreational programming for families, for children, for seniors, for everyone. So I'm not telling you what my opinion is one way or the other here, but I'm just making sure that you recognize why this would have been set up in the first place. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to share more.
It's a huge expense to the county.
Any other thoughts?
Huge, sorry. It's all relative.
I would just say continue as is. I don't know what, in the future, like this year future, if there's going to be any looking at their contract, that type of thing, and you would be a liaison between the Duluth Y and the committee here and the board?
Jenny, that happens at the advisory committee, some of it. All of that communication happens at the advisory where all parties are involved. That's why I feel this is kind of like an extra.
So your main concern is the per diem cost?
That's part of it. I mean, I just feel that this is not a necessary and that we're a little overreaching. It's not our thing.
It seems like they make decisions that affect our community directly.
Yes. There's lots of organizations that do that we're not part of.
True.
They do great work. They're fabulous, and I love having them in the community. That is not in dispute. Just what our authority is, what our responsibility is.
What our role is.
Yes, and our role, as I understand.
So, Commissioner Bershine, you were not on this, you were not on this board before being well, I'm just trying to, I think our community needs to have a voice at that table.
Okay.
I don't know the best way to do that.
I feel it's through the advisory committee.
The advisory committee, my understanding is the advisory committee has certainly they have a say, but they don't have a vote as to the Duluth area organization. It's just kind of like, this is what we.
Well, they do. What they discuss at those meetings goes back to the advisory committee. Their plans and ideas and strategic planning and.
My experience has been different, but I don't want to come off as adversarial.
I'm fine with leaving it. I mean, if that seems to be the majority, that's
and
fine.
I would certainly welcome someone else in the future to be involved in that, but I have been, but if it's, I really think if we dropped it, we would have some issues.
How often do you meet?
Once a month.
And it's a day down and back.
Typically, yes. Sometimes I stay with my daughter, but, and it's difficult for me to do it because of the schedule, but I've always felt this is very worthwhile. Maybe one of the more worthwhile ones when it comes to what happens in the county. As far as the number of people that are affected,
Right.
you've got 1,700 people that are involved, and
Yep.
a lot of staff, 70 staff, but I certainly would be open to have someone else take that on. If someone wants to do that. The meetings are sometimes changed, but they're usually the second Tuesday at 3:30 in the afternoon. So it's sort of a late day, and it's a long day, but I think it's been very worthwhile. But I'm willing to continue, but I would welcome anyone else to be the representative, but... Okay, anything else on that? We'll continue then. YMCA Facilities Committee? Okay, leave as is.
What exactly does that do?
Meets once a month, and right now, for the last year and a half, I guess, this is the committee that deals with the facilities, the building, the structure, maintenance issues. So in the past, it's been, and I think it's changing now, it's where staff, Brian Silence is there, the county administrator's there, we have representatives from the school there, and so we talk about use of the facility. And so it involves programming of the Y, it involves school use, and then we, as the people that own the building. What we've been doing for about the last year is discussing the agreements. And so what drives everything there is the agreements that were made initially, and we're finding that there's needs for revision. And so we've been going through that process, and our county attorney has been very involved, and thanks for all your work on that and looking at the language and so forth. So I think we've made some progress as far as better understanding, and I think the county's clarification of its role has been improving, not only from the service level, but maybe from the financial obligations.
Well, would that be under the building committee? Shouldn't those people be coming to that meeting?
Or the information from that meeting would go to the building committee.
That's a good point. It would be,
The only difference is that the YMCA is a partnership.
there's agreements already established, and the building committee is, and that's another issue I think we'll have to talk about, is building committee and how we structure that, which would be a work in progress. But yeah, there certainly could be issues there, and maybe that would be part of the...
I think Bobby brings up a good point, that the discussions at the facility meeting for the Y need to be brought forward to the building committee for review.
It's possible, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that's another issue we have to talk about, because the building committee has just been rather unstructured to this point, so I think your points are well taken. Yeah. Anything else? Do you want to continue as alternate on that?
Yeah.
Would you want to be on it?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Corner? Council of Aging?
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
neither of us caught, did you just change the alternate for the advisory?
no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, as is. Okay. Corner, Council of Aging. That typically meets the first Tuesday of the month at 9:30, and I've been working on that. There's been a lot of other kinds of meetings. They're going through some changes, going to the hub, and so it's been a lot of work. I'm open to someone else that would, if they want to be on that, but I'll continue. A lot of work in progress, but I'm certainly open if someone else wants to do that.
You can let me know if you can't.
Okay, possibly, okay.
I'm
Well-
an alternate anyway.
Well, let's just do that, thank you. You've been at a couple of meetings, so, yeah, good. So then I'm off, and who would want to be alternate? I could be, I guess, but if someone else wants to.
You just stay as primary, and I would continue as alternate.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh,
understood.
I'm sorry, I thought maybe, I was asking if anyone would want to be primary.
I'll fill in when you can't, but maybe somebody else would want to be primary.
Anyone else want to be primary? Okay. Quarterly, I don't think we've met once in a while. Deferred Compensation Plan Committee, I guess that's as needed. Grand Marais Cook County Economic Development Authority. Emergency Information Team. Let's stop there and take a break. How's that? About 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Do you use OneNote at all? Tell us now.
Break your computer there, Brady.
I tried to, I just couldn't take on.
Yeah. I put it off for a long time, but the VPN and kind of the slowness of the VPN is what had me switch over.
Okay.
Towards paperless.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, I really don't know the next steps, but.
I like that quote. In general, you could add it to our purpose for having bylaw.
I'm good with those from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Right, yep.
I just can't remember which discussions.
And I don't.
I
I have to put in a call to Joe Kelly anyway about something else completely different, but I can find out the next steps.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how early we
It's just hard to change somebody. Like if you can change key parts.
You can make the rules, then you can enforce
Yeah,
it, then you
yeah.
can, you're setting boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, I just think that's rules, and so it creates an ability to manage certain it constraints them just a little
Yeah,
bit.
I really don't know this way, having that gone through.
Yeah, see what he comes
up
up
with,
with,
and
and
then
then let's try to, I'll touch base with him.
Yeah, yep, sounds good.
Yeah. Perfect, thanks, Mike. Yep.
Yeah, we know.
Stand every hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, I got to get signed up for my physical therapy here.
Yeah, I was wondering, how did that come out? Just
Oh,
a
I
pinch nerve.
got 2 damaged spots in my spinal cord, so
You're
Or
in
my
the
spine.
thorax up here.
in the back here somewhere. So we got to try physical therapy first, and then if that don't work, then I got to go to the pain clinic, and then if that don't work, then they got to go in and operate. So.
Yeah, I think I told you I have a collapsed vertebrae, and I mean, for a year, every morning and every night, I had to stand with a weight and stretch my neck,
Yeah.
because it's still crooked.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the surgery, that's
Boy.
last resort.
I've been going to the pain clinic at Essentia
Mhm.
because I got a hip issue
Yeah.
and my neck. What they did with my neck issue, they did an ablation, which they killed the nerve, because I always had these headaches going around here, it's just like a buzzsaw. And that's because I tried jumping on the snowmobile and the helmet, got a whiplash.
Yeah.
And it collapsed my vertebrae. But after about 4 years.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a long time.
But I think that pain clinic, boy, they can do so much.
Mhm. Yeah, I gotta go for an EPG on the 28th. So they gotta figure out how damaged the nerve is.
And I imagine that's because mine was going around my head.
Yeah, I don't know, mine's starting to come into the side of my
Yeah,
neck here
and
too,
it's-
so.
No, they might be able to ablate that with radioactive, just
Mhm.
kill it.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that, it's been fun.
Yeah, well, that's on the 28th, so we got a fairly fast time that day.
Let's see, we're getting there.
Under the E. 6.
Emergency operations. Next, we'll wait for county attorney and administrator.
Do you have anything in your drawer?
Nothing of mine, though.
Okay.
Just what it came with.
Oh, you guys could have done that on break. You could have swapped seats.
We'll do it next week. I have a mint.
There you go. In the bank.
I'll leave it for you.
Were you up the trail on Sunday? Or on
I'd say
Maple-
Sunday.
Or on Maple Hill?
We don't have
It was on
to.
Maple Hill.
Okay, we'll continue the meeting. Our county attorney and
Already went snowmobiling up the trail. That's who was up the trail.
administrator will join us when they can. I think they had to go out for
Kind of.
some good reason.
Works out that way.
Yeah.
So we'll call the meeting to order and go on with the Emergency Operations Command. All county commissioners, the Emergency Preparedness Committee, Explore Minnesota Tourism Council.
We can remove that.
Okay, let's remove that.
You
Duly
actually have
noted.
to apply for it.
Okay. Extension Committee, I think that's been meeting on Mondays now. I guess it should be noted, maybe for those of you that minutes and changes, that some of these meeting dates may not be etched in stone. They're changed and
Right.
are subject to change, so.
We're supposed to turn them into Stacy, April. Which one of you do we turn it? Both of you? To be safe?
For what?
If there's a change to the time so they can update this?
But sometimes they change every month.
Yeah. Those you can't keep track of, but if one changes permanently, like active living at one point changed permanently.
Okay, Extension Committee, there's, by statute, needs to be 2 there. And I'd be willing to step off that one if someone else wants to step up, but I have missed a few, but I may, because they've been on Mondays now. No changes there? Okay. Fire Department Relief Funds, Citizens, Firewise Community Committee. Forest Service Quarter County Liaison Meetings. Kitchigami Trail Association Committees. Governor's Council on Minnesota Coastal Program.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't think that,
Appointed by the
These-
governor, so.
yeah, I think,
In 2013?
yeah, I think we should drop that.
Remove that.
Had the slot open for quite
Let's
a while.
drop that one.
Which one?
The-
Governor's Council on Minnesota Coastal Program.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I got a request last week from someone at the state asking us if we would write a letter of support for somebody who had, I guess, had been recommended or who had applied. But it wasn't clear. That person was somebody from Grand Portage, and I think the tribal council was going to write that for him. But I don't know anything about that committee, other than there is actually representation from the county on it, but
Who's the representation from the county?
We don't know.
there's a couple of people, they're going to make sure there's one person from Cook County. So there was an individual from Portage, and I think there were a couple of other people who are also in that.
So when you say county, you mean county, not the government?
Yeah, Little.
Okay, I think.
But I don't think it needs to be on this list.
No, that's true. I just
think we
wanted to
can
give an
help, but
update on
thank you.
that it is
Sure.
getting to be an active committee again.
Yep, no, thank you. It's typically a citizen, and it's maybe not through our process as a government, so.
And we can
drop
still
it.
do letters of support without it being on our
Right.
list.
Granbury Library Board. Grand Portage Community Task Force, is there a need to continue with that, Bobby?
Yeah, something might go on.
Okay, good. Well, I've gone to a couple of them, and they're worthwhile. Gunflint Trail Scenic Byway Committee. Heart of the Continent Partnership.
I just checked with my Keyport, and it is okay to remove that from our list.
Okay.
It's more of
there's
an
no-
educational experience, and I don't know that we need to continue to invest county dollars in that program. It's not a decision-making board. And we also.
So we have paid dues in the past.
Yes, and we can consider whether or not we want to continue to pay dues, but I don't think that we should continue to send a commissioner and pay for that portion of it. It is a good organization, and they do good things.
I've gone to one of the meetings, and.
What's your
think it's
take?
I think it's worthwhile because it's economic development, related to that, and tourism, and.
I agree that
I
it's
think-
worthwhile, but should we have a commissioner on it? Is it that worthwhile? Does it
That's a
rise to
tough
that
one.
level? I know. And I haven't gone, so someone else can take my primary if you really believe that it's important to county government to keep someone on it. I just don't see it being worthwhile to spend the money in it.
Any other comments? Any?
You know, maybe an EDA person, since it's economic development. I can bring it to the EDA board. Mary Somnus used to be on it as IRRB, and she just hasn't been able to go.
Okay, but anyone have an interest in being on that?
They meet quarterly. Sometimes it's in Canada, sometimes it's here,
Yeah.
sometimes it's...
Well, then I think just, could we just leave it on and then you could get back to us? So let's put a hold on that one.
The next date is January 17th.
It is, and I can't go. It's in Quetico.
I don't know if I can go or not.
That in Virginia?
I'm sorry, Bobby, I didn't hear you. Oh, okay. Well, let's leave that. Hospital District. I would welcome someone else to be alternate, but I've only gone to a couple meetings, so. Dave's been very diligent.
You could put me down for alternate.
Okay.
So you could let me know.
Thank you.
Public Health and Human Services. All of us. Lake County and Cook County Highway Committee. We should have Myron and Bob, I think would Bobby would continue on that. We should continue with that. So add Commissioner DeShaw. Lake Superior Poplar River Water District Board of Directors.
Well, that's interesting. You can take off Mark Sanbo, Bob Fenwick.
But they're still functioning.
As far as I know.
Okay,
Once in a while, I'll
okay.
attend a meeting.
What about Bob Ryan? Is he still on it?
I don't think so. I haven't seen him.
I think he sold out, yeah.
Yeah.
Land Policy Advisory Group, as needed. I think we've met once. Land Records Committee, as needed. The Ranch and Resource Conservation Development Commission, we have representation from Soil and Water on that, and I have been the primary. And Jenny, I think for the record, let's hear from Soil and Water. I think it's worthwhile. We have the rep here, Stan.
Soil and Water has removed itself from that board.
Okay. And I think it would be appropriate that we also, as a county rep, no longer continue to pay dues or have representation there. I have found in the 3 years that there's been some good things done there, but generally speaking, not a lot of it has pertained to our county. And so that would take some action on the auditor's part, I think, to not pay those dues.
Action on our part, so I will make the motion to not pay dues and not have commissioner representation.
Okay, any support? Support, okay. All those in favor?
Can you,
Discussion.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask, just a little bit more about, you know, that, what they do, how we've been involved, how
So
it
this
does.
is kind of like the MRC board, the Minnesota Rural Caucus. We were members of it for a while, and then as membership changed and the focus of it changed, we withdrew from it, and we have not signed back up. So at some point, if the direction of this board changes and it is more beneficial to Cook County, then we can pay dues once again and have a member present on it. But lately, the focus has not been beneficial to Cook County.
I could comment on that. In the 3 years, as I mentioned before, there's been some good projects. It's been functioning for quite a while, and they do receive some kind of funding. A lot of it is through grants and so forth that sometimes are very good projects. But generally speaking, we don't deal with a lot of local issues that pertain to a specific county. They would be for the region. One of the examples would be a watershed project on some river on the North Shore. They rely a lot on funding. It's more of a project-oriented thing. The only purpose I could see for continuing would be if they had a project that we would apply for through Soil and Water or through the county board, but I haven't really seen that need develop, so therefore not pertinent to our needs. But I think it's quite different than other kinds of organizations that are more, it's not an advocacy group such as I think is the rural group. It's more of a conservation projects, environmental concerns projects. And they do fund local things, you know, but.
Stan, hasn't it been 10 years since Cook County received grant money? Hasn't it been 10 years since Cook County received grant money through this organization?
Yeah, well, I can't speak exactly for that, but it's been a long time since they've done really anything that impacts our county. I think our money could better be spent locally, or saved, or put in the coffers, or whatever. And I don't think they're part of the national system.
It's a state organization.
I think they're kind of a standalone. On their own, they're just trying to write enough grants to keep their head above water. That's.
They're part of a state organization that's had a tradition of more forest products and
right.
That timber. And we haven't had that much timber activity, but a lot of it has been timber-based, yeah.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with private land ownership, and we have so little private land ownership. most of the stuff doesn't relate to us, in my opinion.
Okay, so let's, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of dropping it?
Who was the second?
I am. Okay.
All right, go
All right.
ahead.
Yep.
Local Water Management Plan Advisory Committee?
Can we just add Stan Tull's name after SWCD representative?
Okay. Anything else? Minnesota County's Intergovernmental Trust, Minnesota Power Citizen Advisor Committee.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I was wondering
Yeah.
if on the Intergovernmental Trust Committee, if that should be the chair and the vice chair?
I don't think it has been, but.
It hasn't been? Okay, I just wondered if that was coincidence, or...
It's who is available to
Whoever's
attend that meeting
available.
and vote.
We meet at, when we have our AMC.
Okay.
And you're okay
Anytime
with
we meet.
continuing, Jenny?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Minnesota Transportation Alliance, Northeast Minnesota Area Transportation Partnership, Northeast Minnesota Emergency Communications Board, Northeast Minnesota Home Consortium Advisory Committee.
Jenny, have you been able to make that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Northeast Minnesota Office of Job Training Program, Northeast Waste Advisory Council, Northern Counties Land Use Coordinating Board, North Shore Collaborative, North Shore Management Board, North Shore Scenic Drive Council, Northwoods Food Project, One Watershed, One Plan Committee, Advisory Committee, okay, Parks and Trails Commission, Pigeon River International Emergency Management Committee, Planning Commission, oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, just looking through the Parks and Trails. Oh, there we go, okay. Just the format messed me up, okay.
Okay. Going on, Planning Commission. Poplar River Watershed Management Board. Region 3 Social Service Redesign, is that still in need of, okay. Revolving Loan Fund Committee. Safety Wellness Workplace Committee. Sawtooth Bluffs Recreational Planning Committee, that's on a pause right now, just because of all the issues that are especially going on with the city.
Myron, has that been moved to Parks and Trails?
Excuse me?
Has that been moved to Parks and Trails, or is that still a standalone committee?
No, it is. It's a committee that's under, Lisa Kerr chairs it and facilitates it. But there are representation, that were appointed from the city and the county. And there was an application, work project for a grant, a project, and we put that on hold, but that would go to the Resource Development Council for funding if we activate again and go forward. But
Okay.
it's on a, I'd say it's on a pause right now because it was just so difficult for us to meet.
Okay.
And we may not look at it again till next year, I don't know. But, good question, but I think it's a separate thing that we've done by board action in the past. And
Okay. Because I know Parks and Trails, we spend a lot of time talking on this.
well, it'd be very important, sure.
And I think it started with Parks and Trails, and then Parks and Trails,
Separated it.
yep.
Perfect.
Their intention was, their advice was to create this
Subcommittee.
separate, yep.
Awesome.
And then that includes the city,
Yep.
and
Makes
I
sense.
think the last I had heard is it's kind of on pause, both with our administrative search as well as kind of going through some of the joint powers with the city already.
Great,
So-
thank you.
It's a work in progress, and whether it continues or not will, I think, be determined at a later date, but it was just too much going on and too much change. And so let's go forward. Security Committee. I wouldn't mind if someone would replace me on that. I do have a conflict.
How often does it meet?
It varies. I think right now it's going to be quarterly,
It's Monday at 9
Monday
a.m.,
at
isn't it?
8:15.
So Dave, you might have a conflict if you're doing your leadership meeting. So I would take the primary, Dave, if you want to take the alternate. Isn't that part of the issue with you, Myron? Is
Yes.
that- Yeah.
Okay?
Sure, yeah.
But he will be involved in
Yeah.
leadership too. But it'll help. Okay, thank you for doing that. Septic Advisory Committee?
Y'all can see what my love is.
Hey, last page. Septic Ordinance Committee / Disposal Committee.
It follows the Firewise meeting.
Okay.
Exciting.
It's very exciting. It's as exciting as septic.
Solid Waste Committee. Vacation Rental Committee. Okay, any other suggestions or additions that we should consider? I know that we've taken a vote on certain items. I think at this point in time, the chair will recognize a motion and a second to approve our discussion as duly noted and by the people taking minutes. That's
So moved.
Okay, excuse me.
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, we did have one other committee assignment that Tim Nelson had put
Jenny
in.
added that to the end of the agenda?
Was it added to the end?
Yes.
I just thought, since we were talking
Well.
about committees.
Oh, well.
I'm sorry.
We could do that.
But we can add, I'm sorry.
No, I mean.
My mistake.
Well, we'd have to go through, I noted it at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, sorry.
So we have a motion, and there was a second. Okay, and so, any discussion? Clarification? Questions? Okay, all those in favor of the changes duly noted, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to Auditor Resolution for Official Newspaper for 2020, and that's page 26.
Mr. Chair.
An item?
Yeah. Who's the,
You skipped
I
an
think
item.
the
I'm sorry.
meeting schedule.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Meeting schedule of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, they were noted on page 25. Any discussion or questions on that, and entertain a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
So move.
Okay, any questions, discussion? All those in favor, aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Nay, thank you. Passes. Auditor, resolution for...
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
County is required to have an official newspaper for legal notices. We sent out the bid notice. We received one bid from Cook County News Herald. You should have it attached in your packet. We bid the same price as for 2019, no change, $9 per column inch. This is the qualified newspaper to bid, and I ask you to approve it by resolution as attached.
Okay. Any questions or discussion before I ask for a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Okay,
Support.
support. Okay. Discussion, questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Hands? Okay, passes.
Next item is designation of depository for county funds. I'm calling it the primary depository. Technically, we may have a CD at a local bank, for example, and that qualifies as a depository, but this is for the main depository, where our checking account is, and our savings accounts. And I'm recommending that we continue with Grand Marais State Bank as the primary depository for 2020.
Okay. Just a note that in our minutes and agenda report, it says Grand Marais, and it should be Grand Marais State Bank.
Right.
So discussion, questions on that? Chair would recognize a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
As has been our past practice, we've approved the budget and levy in December. And I come back with a formal resolution to approve the same. So we approved the budget and levy in December on the 17th, $10,367,293. And on the second page there, you can see the resolution. So I'd ask for approval of that resolution, the same as you approved on December 17th.
Any questions, discussion? Entertain a motion for the resolution.
So moved.
Support?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Some of the reason, not this year, not in recent memory, but there have been years where this has actually helped because we've had kind of controversial, we've had many potential budgets and levies, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, E, F, for example. And there can be confusion, especially in the public's mind, et cetera. So to put it in a resolution form, it clarifies it. Sometimes it's not needed, sometimes it helps.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Administrator? Nothing? Okay. Then under employee concerns, commissioner concerns, we added Tim Nelson's committee. And so,
Right, so you can look that over. Just appointing.
okay, so from Tim Nelson, we need a commissioner appointed to the appeals panel for, I believe, the vacation rental appeals.
I'd be willing to do that.
Okay. Any other people interested? Okay, so any discussion on this?
We should have an alternate.
Alternate, thank you. Who would be willing to be alternate?
I could be alternate.
Okay, Jenny Storlie, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of appointing Commissioner Dukirk as primary and Jenny Storlie as alternate to serve on Administrative Appeals Panel for vacation rentals?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, support?
Second?
Any discussion?
I'm not familiar with this at all.
It's a new committee.
Okay.
So now that we have the application process and permitting for vacation rentals, there may be people who feel they do not have to be participation in that, and so we will have this committee that will review the application and process and verify whether or not they need to apply, because there's so many different types of rentals in Cook County.
I have a question about that. Are there other committees for such appeals, like a building permit appeal or anything like that? And so the need for this is because it's new? Okay.
As of January
Okay.
1st.
Any other questions, discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the other purpose for the appeals committee, if I'm understanding Commissioner Mills's question, this is a mechanism by which people can dispute the classification of their property, and it's important that there is a method for dispute since it affects their property rights and by way of their financial interest.
So this is not the permit, this is the classification?
No.
It's both.
No.
Oh,
Tim,
okay.
excuse me, Mr. Chair, Tim talked to me right before the meeting, and he said, this is not about classification at all. It's only about the licensing. It's peeling the license.
Classification would go
Misspoke.
through Board of Equalization.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I was just clarifying to clarify.
And I'll retract,
It's-
because that was not clarifying.
Yeah, Commissioner Mills, it is confusing that because we have both of these topics going on at the same time, and there's a great deal of overlap. So I think the conversation always needs to be clarified because it's a moving target on both sides, so.
So this is an appeals for the permit. And because this is a new permit, there can be confusion and potentially need an appeal process. Are we anticipating that this is going to be cleared up in time as far as?
Yeah, and this is probably similar to the planning commission.
Yeah.
Because if you do an application
Yep.
for a permit, that's where you have that opportunity. There's the Board of Adjustment.
Right, and so that's what I was wondering, if it
this
could
would-
not just be the Board of Adjustment. No. Okay.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? So all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Okay, commissioner reports? Meetings to note?
Yes.
Yes.
Registration is now available for our legislative session, so we need to tell April if we're going down in February. Starts actually registration on a Tuesday with sessions going to the legislature on Wednesday in February. I don't know what the date is.
26, 27.
Yeah, right. So it's really important for us to be there on the bus going to the legislative session and meeting with Senator Bach and Representative Eklund.
So the 25th is a county board meeting, so we'll all be shuffling right out of here.
Right, yeah. So we need to let April know if we're going or not.
When I got elected, I was told it wasn't an if.
Okay, meeting updates. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
To save,
Meeting adjourned.
to save there.
You can put this in the little box there.
Okay.
Just making sure.
I did have
It's
April update a
impossible.
few words.
Okay.
It is impossible for me to multitask, and I need to recognize that. One thing? Or this thing, or the